Hi there. For my media project, I will be talking about speech and language disorders, emotional and behavioral disorders, and students with autism. So, students with speech and language disorders. So this includes disorders of articulation, apraxia, voice disorders, and fluency disorders. So the articulation disorder is when a child cannot correctly produce various sounds or sound combinations. There are 4 subcategories within this one disorder. So it's substitutions, omissions, additions, and distortions. So substitutions is when a child substitutes a sound for another sound. For example, when they say the word little and it comes out whittle, they have substituted the L for the W. For omission, when a child leaves out a sound, is when they are trying to say the word bike and it comes out Ike, they have taken out the B sound. And distortions are when there are modifications to the sound. An example of this can be a lisp. So that CH, SH, S, and Z sounds are distorted a little bit. So apraxia is a motor speech disorder that affects the way a student plans to produce speech. They have difficulty positioning the articulators and sequencing the words and sounds. And this could be acquired as a result of trauma, for example, a stroke, a tumor, or a head injury. Voice disorders. So the voice reflects the interactive relationship of pitch, duration, intensity, resonance, and vocal quality. The quality of the voice is affected by problems of breath support, vocal fold functioning, as well as resonance. Fluency disorder is normal speech requires correct articulation, vocal quality, rate, and rhythm of speaking. And if one of those aren't going correctly, they typically have a fluency disorder. Social characteristics that an individual with speech and language disorders may have is they are typically alone during unstructured times, and they might not ask other students to play, or they won't join in peer interactions. Cognitive and intellectual characteristics. The child may have difficulty understanding or using the language. Academic characteristics. So speech-language pathologists work and collaborate with special and general education teachers to ensure that a student is getting enough intensity and frequency of the services to ensure that their progress is continuing. Universal design. So as long as we are using a variety of methods and formats to relay information, for example, using audio and text formats, visual representations with verbal information, graphics, and graphic organizers to relay that information, while allowing students to show that they know the information with various types of assignments. So instead of just doing written reports, we could do PowerPoint presentations, demonstrations with visual supports, taped oral reports, or dramatic performances. Students with emotional and behavioral disorders. So there are 5 types of emotional and behavioral disorders. It is anxiety disorder, depression, oppositional and defiant disorder, conduct disorder, and schizophrenia. So anxiety has 4 little subcategories. There's separation anxiety, generalized anxiety, phobia and panic, and social anxiety. The separation anxiety is an intense fear associated with separating from home, family, or an individual who the child is attached to. The generalized anxiety is excessive and overwhelming worry not caused by any recent experience. And a specific phobia could be like water or fear of the dark, etc. And panic disorder is overwhelming panic attacks resulting in rapid heart rate, dizziness, or other physical symptoms. Schizophrenia has its subcategories as well. It has delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, and catatonic behavior. With the delusions, it has strong and unusual beliefs that are just thoughts. So someone is trying to hurt me, it's a thought, but that's something that happens with delusions. Hallucinations are sensory perceptions without an environmental stimulus. So if They're hearing voices. That could be a hallucination. Disorganized speech and catatonic behavior. So that means that the behavior lacks movement, activity, and expression. So social characteristics that an individual with emotional and behavioral disorders may have is they experience a social challenge and don't have many friends. Bullying is often a reason for depression, and there's 4 different types of bullying, and then causes distress to students and to others. Cognitive and intellectual characteristics. So the GPA of students who have emotional and behavioral disorders was lower than students with disabilities. There are more than twice as likely to have missed instructional time due to being suspended or expelled. And academic characteristics is the graduation for students with emotional and behavioral disorders is 53%. So universal design. There are 5 different types of literacy for the mindful education program. So the physical literacy is being present in the moment and safe in your body. So it's shedding the tension. There's mental literacy that avoids distractions, direct attention to point of focus such as breathing and noticing where your thoughts kind of go. And then there's emotional literacy, to acknowledge negative emotions and to foster positive emotion and figure out where it's coming from. There's social literacy, so turning the attention towards others, to avoid the judgments about them, but the important thing is to develop empathy for everyone, even those who cause negative emotion. And then global literacy is to move beyond the immediate family and friends and to recognize the universal needs of all people. So students with autism. So it is a development disability resulting in and characterized persistent impairments and social interactions and communication. So social characteristics. It would be interrupting others when they're communicating, experiencing difficulty knowing when to speak, limiting communication topics, and reversing pronouns, and repeating and echoing other people's language, and lacking interest in initiative to approach peers. Cognitive and intellectual characteristics. Autism symptoms are more severe when individuals have lower IQs, and 2/3 of students will have cognitive challenges that affect learning even if they are identified with having intellectual disabilities. Academic characteristics. Some individuals with autism display savant syndrome. So this consists of extraordinary talents like music, art, calendar calculating, mathematics, and mechanical and spatial skills. So how can universal design be applied? So they can do self-scheduling. So these can help the student feel more calm during transitions and can help them determine appropriate times when to speak or to ask to move or ask questions. Self-instruction, so by using graphic organizers to help them prepare for classroom conversation, they can make them more likely to talk to their peers and interact with others. Self-monitoring, using and utilizing charts and checklists, that would be useful for them to better analyze what needs left or what they have left to complete. And self-modeling is when students can watch themselves typically through a video, perform a specific behavior, and evaluate the impact of the already performed behavior. And then social stories is when we give them a sheet or the social story when we create how an environment or action should look for the student to be able to see how they should react. That is it.